Who does my body belong to? Does it belong to my father, the state, my husband, or my God? As a black woman born in Cameroon, raised across Africa, and living in Europe, I have often felt that when it comes to people who look like me, public conversations about sex and sexuality are almost exclusively focused on family planning, disease, or sexual violence. Who's talking about pleasure and desire? We often hear about women seeking equality in the boardroom, but what about equality in the bedroom? Before we were all grounded by the pandemic, I traveled first to Accra, Ghana, in my search for answers. Did you talk about sex growing up?
No, never. You're not brought up to think of, your body as something that's supposed to give you pleasure. In a sense, you're brought up to kind of feel like shame, don't wear the skirt.
Nana Dakwa Sechiama is the co-founder of Adventures from the Bedrooms of African Women, a Ghanaian blog set up to explore the themes of sex and sexuality from a Pan-African perspective.
And so you have to sort of reclaim your body, and for me it's a continuous thing, and it's something that you never really stop. So
in my experience, self-pleasure was sinful. And so I grew up quite afraid. I mean, not in a kind of overt, terrified way, but in a kind of almost like every part of my body existed except down here.
If you can't please yourself, how do you show somebody else how to please you? I have my drawer full of toys right there. An African woman's right to pleasure for me is as important as an African woman's right to health, education, public spaces. But maybe when the society sees more women who don't feel they have to conform to social norms, it might give women the freedom to actually be whoever they want to be and know that you're a whole person within yourself. You don't need to be attached to a man to actually, have status. Yeah.
When we met, Nana was working on her book, The Sex Lives of African Women. She gathered some members of the Adventures community, poets, activists, artists, and academics for a reading in her Accra home.
If you're in a society where women are made to feel shy about saying, for example, the vagina and things like that, then it translates into your sexual life,
Yeah, so many women are not yet satisfied. Holla Africa is a South African platform, inspired by Adventures, but created specifically for queer women.
And check us out on Facebook.
It was a confusing time for a lot of us.
Its founder, Tiffany Mugo, produced a few seasons of a podcast called The Wildness with Amanda Hodgson.
A lot what Holla does is to fill a vacuum of information. There's nothing for us, about us, to us, with us in terms of sex and sexuality, because our sex is often quite policed.
That's a narrative that's spread all over the world of just, if two women are having sex, then is it a real thing? Because where is the penis? The penis is missing. We need to see ourselves as queer women, as queer people, as brown women in a completely different light, not in this quintessential wives, mothers, whatever way.
What has changed in your sex lives since you started doing this work?
I've been with my partner for 8 years. You eventually figure out how to do the things, right? If you're trying to churn out those orgasms, boop, bop, boop, done, right? So I think this has made me have to be look, bruh, we can't chugga on like this for the next 50 years. We can't boop, bap, boop for the next 50 years.
Back in Accra, the Young Feminists Collective, which met monthly before the COVID-19 pandemic, taught me that sex positivity really isn't about sex at all. It's about being empowered to make your own decisions about your body. Because if you don't have control over the one thing in this life you actually own, what is it that you can control? I'd say that's obvious. Your body is yours, right? So pleasure is yours, is it not?
But never be forbidden something.
Yeah. So growing up in a Muslim home, your body would very often be likened to toffee. what's the charm in unwrapping the toffee to enjoy it? If your husband was to come and marry you and you've already showcased everything, i.e. the size of your boobs, your hips, your butt, everything, what's there for him to enjoy? So for the longest time, this was like embedded in my subconscious. How much I hated my body, how much I couldn't be confident enough to, feel good about what I was doing. The guilt of even enjoying sex. The health stayed with me almost 4 or 5 years down the line before I finally got to the phase where I'm like, you know what? I quite like my body. And I think it's sexy.
A banging body.
And it bangs,
I was excited to meet this group and hearing the conversations that you have about sex and sexuality, and seeing that sex positivity actually often has nothing to do with sex, right? It's positivity in so many other ways that then spills out into what you do in your intimate space.
But I think what we have to do is not just document our sexual experiences, but also make it an ongoing and active critique and interrogation of the reasons why we make the choices that we do sexually and in the rest of our lives. The way we traditionally frame the conversation around pleasure is male-centered. And so it's about what a woman can do for a man.
Taking care of yourself as a woman is radical. And putting your health first as a woman is radical. So that your life isn't centered around other people or men, or just your life isn't just always in service, that you take all of that and you give that to yourself.
I owe it to myself and all of humanity to make sure that my pleasure is not in the hands of some other person outside of myself.